that is that the Kundong and the Tawata, then the Yumian Aseta, Nikawa Juchi shares and that is much Zanyan to share the order.
Of the 6 divisions of the 51 mental factors, we've looked at the first 3, the omnipresent, the object ascertaining, and the virtuous. So now we'll come to the top of page 24, the root afflictions.
That's what Zanyan to there you be said that Decha, Conto, Naja, Marigba, Tesum Yamaja, Tawan Yamajana, the Jukes, and there you be like the Zanyan Yung or to be Desha, Conto, Naja, Marigba, Zanyan Yung or to be Desha, Conto, Naja, Marigba, and Tesum Yamaja, Tawan Yamaja, and they to what letter Zanyan Yumobars.
And the 6 root afflictions are those of attachment, anger, pride, ignorance, afflicted doubt, and afflicted views. And these are the root of afflictions.
That's all you did courageous and the sharkin and these electric Yomoba Kigor, and a control cage, control at the Yomoba. Then I did this would then Mamma Dambo, Zavi Yomo Chazan didn't under Dazi Maripache. Dazi Maripa Delatin, Dusha, control Naja Mariba Gasore. That is Maribidina and the Jandua, Dusha, control Naja Maripache, Maripa Della Dusha, control Naja, Tesum share, and then locked at the and DJ la nyomo rik mangbo mangbo ligoro chisa da zai nyomo ba se de nyomo mangbo yonse ge junse ge zo ro ji de tu tu de se ro ba nan ni marik ba la bi de jidan de dina de da da zin ge yo ma yin ge yo ma rik ra ma yo ro.
The next sentence then specifies why they are called root afflictions, why this division is called root afflictions. They act as the root of both cyclic existence and the secondary afflictions, and thus are called root afflictions. The secondary afflictions, that's, as you can see, is the list that comes next. So the secondary afflictions have as their root these 6. So, for example, from anger will come other afflictions. From the root affliction of anger, for example, others such as belligerence or resentment may arise. So this is why they are called root afflictions. And cyclic existence itself has as its very root the ignorance of self-grasping. So this is why then this division of 6 is called root afflictions.
yu chi le tsumi ishi ki ongi rangi yu ti la dan jidang do ngo sha tang ro chi pine zhumda oma ne ngo sha tang dan tenju bi ngo sha na de so ka li ko de jidang dang zo jidang ni xie ba yin na dai tsumi ishi ki zho da ne yu di le yi di ngo se la ba zho da ni jin bi ge da de la di dun ni ye dunye ki lo de la dan de sha sa se de ni le go wa yu de le tsumi yi ji ki yu de le ane ha ba ro da ne ane de la di ra hu du se me dun ni ye ki lo de la ane ka so re de sha se go re 당보 취미 이제기 이제 취미 이제 로디 유텔라 이루원 변 이루원을 하바지 줬다 비게 되니게 줬다 비 유디다 디파 된달에 베제지 로디라 다데 되샤시 그러한
So taking the first one, attachment. First, the attachment being a consciousness will have an object. A consciousness then called improper mental engagement. It has a consciousness that has the function of exaggerating the features or aspects of an object is called an improper mental engagement. And exaggerating the features of the features or aspects of the object, then attachment arises. So this explanation of improper mental engagement, we can say, is a general description. There are differing explanations of improper mental engagement according to the different philosophical tenets. But in general, we can say that here, when it exaggerates the features or aspects of the object, then that consciousness becomes attachment, or one of attachment.
Control said the Nanji Tsumi Tsumenji will look at Trota said Yidu Yudula Yidu Korongi Yidu Mua de la Haba Trota Yidu Moa Tache, then the Trota Pi, Denigi, Della Midupiki, Dedan Jaduke, somebody look control like
And then for anger, it has a similar process. The consciousness that deprecates the object, deprecates certain aspects or features of the object. This then becomes a consciousness of anger. So the first one, that leads to attachment, exaggerates the qualities of the object, and then when improper mental engagement deprecates or does the opposite of exaggerating the features of the object, then anger follows. The third is pride. Pride then serves the function, or the consciousness that is called pride, it serves the function of exaggerating one's own qualities. One's own qualities are exaggerated beyond to what they exist, and then pride arises.
The Marikpa said, Marikpa and you more, you can listen to the more near Hamashi more Hamo, the Marikpa, Marihamo, Mashing body.
And fourthly, ignorance. This is the consciousness that doesn't know the entity of an object. That is ignorance. So this unknowing is ignorance.
That Tezum Nyomonja City, then Tezum de la Injimiji Nyomonja in Goyamar. That Tezum Nyomonja la de Nyomong walking Tezum Udila, the Ina Mina Sambega Samlo de la Tezum Nyomoja Sira, Tezum Nyomoy.
Fifthly is afflicted doubt. Here, the term afflicted indicates that doubt, when doubt is associated with afflictions, then it would be afflicted doubt. All doubt is not necessarily this root affliction.
Tawa penang leg and meba tawa sen. The nigga tawa la the rigmabu or wachidane, Tangansuki tawa said loba tawa pene leg and yomare said that tawa. Che timber kasa, che tamje, and timber tubare sibi tawa. The nigga tawa pene leg and yomare said, and they gave a chima machi yoma, gave a chima yomare, nama yomare said, and conjo yomare, and the nigga some day tawa. That Nyomoches, Dinigi, Tawa de Tawa Nyomoches.
Afflicted view. This then refers to a view which has as its essence, as its entity, an affliction. So that's perhaps a better way to describe the term afflicted in doubt. That doubt that has its essence or its entity is afflicted, would be afflicted doubt. View which has its entity as affliction, then it's called afflicted view. And these would be, for example, not accepting cause and effect, so not believing in cause and effect, rejecting cause and effect, rejecting reincarnation, rejecting the existence of the three jewels. So such a view that rejects phenomena that do exist, it has as its entity, and it is at its entity afflicted, and therefore this view is an afflicted view.
Tawa sedi dalajimenanganze tawa lama mujikta thada lokta se tawa ki mangu shayarwa dizu chazan tawa sedi kiela deosyana nganju susurarangi jeba che dini gansam jiro oda di bene le kunde yena mena sambe samro ta sosu ripo kimse sam ta anji dep peje da dini ki jesu jambi ki dini ki yo le kunde yo maresin dini ki sheshi ki peche yorwa deni ki tache njewa sam tache anda legyunde mindu sambe samlo tawa na disu tawa sikore di tawa andi nashin andi koncho yore yomar se jeba samlo jeba che andi hanji deni ki shengi yomar se sheshepe di jesu changwam deni jeba che deni tache ne kansam chi odida yu mindu sambe samlo deni leyade tawa sikore chisan disu tawa di nyomo chen jeba le tu 김세나 제바다 삼다야다 데니기 되는 게 기거를 마도 기거를 당도 되셔 기하다 홍종 하게 해서 데 김세 삼다스 가요 말요 야네 김세 삼도야 대표 로생기 직접 받기 제수 장고에서 가요 말와 아주 되셔 기하다 홍종 기하다 나야 마리바 태숨세게 되고 말다 따와니 뭐자세 지리 안 되네지 삼 제바제야도다 내안에 직
This one root affliction, that of afflicted view, has a unique characteristic amongst the six in that it requires investigation. The others do not require this. So for one to have a view, this was specifically an afflicted view, one will have used one's own reasoning to examine and to investigate, thinking for oneself, perhaps based on philosophical tenets or what one has read or one has heard, thought for oneself and come to a conclusion that something that in reality does exist, come to the conclusion that it does not. For example, cause and effect or three jewels. So one will have, for example, heard of a presentation that there's no such thing as cause and effect, as karma, and one will have thought about it, maybe read about it, and come to a conclusion that there's no such thing as cause and effect. So here, there's a very clear process of investigation, and that is required for the sixth root affliction, afflicted view. The preceding five don't necessarily require this process of investigation.
Esa dang ang zu Benedelia tawa labgwe de garasne de nyun namdang sibi zawa zawi jiriba jebe na ane zanyun ko de titubo de la zanyun labgwe garasne yana desole de nyun nyomo ba de ge chasan desole de gi go re shere de nyun nyomo ba ge gi zawa desole de gi wa za zawi nyomo ba jigne yang jigne nga zu ge ko wa ge wa le ge gyusaegi kola ge rimbe gyuzawadi ta nyomo bete sola tene kowa ge le sa le yonge kowa ge wal mangbo chi ge yosa di sene nga kola ge gyuzawaro she di sories jesan kola zawe nyomo bala ko de kimchen re dire sha su di sunda nye nyomo ba namdam sibe zawa jiriba jebe na zanyen she jube shiris ka shele Gabriela nye nyomo ba ge gyuchi go zawa chi go Gabriela kowa ge gyu zawa chi chi yo ban za ne ko nye la ka sa zanyen la wa res.
Next sentence then presents two reasons why this division is called root afflictions. So the first reason is that they are the root of the secondary afflictions. So from these the root of any of these six come the other afflictions. So that's one reason. Another reason is that the root afflictions, particularly that of the ignorance of self-grasping, is the root cause of cyclic existence. So therefore there are two reasons why these are called root afflictions, being the root of the secondary afflictions and being the root cause of cyclic existence.
ine bene ngangzu dangbo ngangzu le kariki gor sene ngangzu maripa seri maripa de ngangzu ki gor wa 다 마릭바 데케네 베네다 유용오 의니 수디 하모고와지 마릭바 책으로 그래서 하모 마릭바지 마릭바 진짜 하모고와 딜레다 마릭바들 하모고와 참 되네 하모고와지 친줄로도 짐바딜라 마릭바지 마릭바 릭망보여래 그래서 저기 마릭바시디 다이페네가 저기 게디게 랑도르게 니수 마싱바 쌈디야 마릭바래 다 마싱바 마르제 아니 게디게 페네 nga se susara nga tempo dubar rangshing dubare sembe zimbatea mariba chakasa nga zo nga di nga ngui su chena tempo madubar wa tempo madubare chesa di tempo duba nawa na shin tempo duba zinde ba sa dia mariba zawa chesa mariba se di mariba nela ane rik mangbo yede bare chesa dine ensa ta nga zu gyula marikpa tangbo kigo ar ta pen nga zu ru sheba da nga sampatabo nga se nga zu ngui rashi madu ni sa mo wa che rashi nga zu nga di nga zu li na yu rang ngui ne du ka la ma du rang ngui du ba nang go re na wa na shin ti re sha se me zimba di marikpa re da di marikpa che da dine jin ne an ga li go se nga di jin ne dine nga di kudu se de yu de ya ne yu le chapa di wang ge ne ne semchen so chu che da so chu be ge le sa de ne le di wang ge ba cha sha ane ba cha de ma ko ra je ne ma ane ji se ba de len ba si ba se de ne ge ge je ne je la ne ge wa chi ma ge wa le ne ge wa chi ma ge wa le du sen ne gewa chime 가서 동안 용어야 다 되네게 망볼래요. 디네에서 코르비게 gewa 시비게 gewa 게게 규소디 마릭바체 마릭바텔레 되샤기네 안에 레사바 용거래 코르게네 레사바 용거래 나야게네 레사바 용거래 디네 마릭비체소 레사이 규델라 되샤도 코르 나게디게 찍니레 순니레 중거래스는 해봤어요. 하실 가브릴라 마릭바게네 디네 마리베디 원고 코르게네 셈차 소치 제가 용거래 가브릴라 마릭방 다시 마릭바게 디왕게 안델레 암서 되샤게 되샤왕게 semja socho 와용 거래 야 마릭바게 되는 나예기는 나게 왕게 야 샬라 통제 받아 강아 제발 되니게 레사 와용 그래서 라마라 서고 진짜 마리바 왕게 갑레 되샤게 레사고 갑레 콘르게 레사고 갑레 나예게 레사고 두스케네 나 레사 코와게 와렘바 자위 규디 마릭바제 델라테네 디참 lamsa de sha dang khong ro la sa ba yung go ba za khong zan zai yu nyo mo ba se sha ro da
At the root of the root afflictions is ignorance. And ignorance is a general term. There are differing types of ignorance. But in general, ignorance refers to a not knowing, in particular, not understanding reality. So here, one is referring to a particular type of ignorance, an ignorance that does not understand reality. It's a mistaken consciousness. Not understanding reality means not understanding how phenomena exist in reality, the real way, the correct way that they do exist. It's being ignorant about that. And in particular, if we're looking at the root cause, so going right down, we talk about the ignorance of self-grasping. And this is the root of all problems. And this is what is referred to here as being the root of cyclic existence, the ignorance of self-grasping. And so ignorance is a consciousness. To the consciousness, the self, or a sense of self-identity, appears in a particular way. One then grasps at it as existing in the way that it appears. But it does not exist in the way that it appears. Therefore, this consciousness is one of ignorance because it is mistaken with regard to how the object, the self, actually exists. So the ignorance of self-grasping can be called the ignorance of true grasping. It grasps at the self as existing truly. In other words, as existing in the way that it appears. But this is not how the self exists. The ignorance of self-grasping grasps at the self as being independent and unchanging. but it exists in a way contrary to this. Hence it's an ignorance, because it is not in accordance with reality, and it is grasping at, or we can express it as believing in the objects, such as the self, as existing in a way that it does not appear. Does not exist. So that is the function of this particular consciousness that then, because of its function, is called ignorance, in particular ignorance of self-grasping. And the reason that it is the very root of cyclic existence, the root of samsara, it's because from this ignorance that believes that the self exists in the way that it appears as being independent, from this belief in a truly existent self, comes attachment, comes anger, and comes pride, and all the afflictions then that follow from those. So there's this continuity of an ignorance of self-grasping, grasping at the self as existing in a way that it doesn't. From that, we have the self that now wants happiness, but this self doesn't exist. Now we have attachment wanting to feed it, or anger wanting to protect it. From the attachment and anger, other afflictions may come. And from the arisal of afflictions, then physical and verbal behavior is engaged in. When one engages in physical behavior or verbal behavior, or merely the presence of these afflictions, karma is being created. And this is contaminated karma, because it's contaminated by these very afflictions. And therefore, when these ripen, they ripen in cyclic existence, in the perpetuation of cyclic existence. And when this karma that is accumulated is non-virtuous, it ripens in suffering. So what keeps us bound in cyclic existence are our afflicted minds, as well as the karma that these afflicted minds create through physical, verbal, or merely mental behavior. And these afflicted minds, all of them, the vast array of them, come from the root afflictions, and the root afflictions, they come from the one root, the ignorance of self-grasping. And it's from this ignorance that the entire stream of the other afflictions, and then thereby the accumulation of karma, follows. And this is how we create our samsara, through this very process. Hence, ignorance of self-grasping is the very root of cyclic existence.
That got around to get Newman and the Zawa did that Tango Marik Bachagarwa. There's not Marik Piki and the DJ that Tuchata, Cabri Tucha, that Cabri Conro di Shiwana and Dare, Joshua. That in it, the Jianzu, then Zavi Newmomba said, Dear Gilbala, but Zavi Newmo be more Gilby Tucha Conro, Lagormado, that Tucha Conro Lapshana, Tucha Jibu Transin, Zavi Newmom being ever your Marella. Then Takarela Bendigo, Tucha, Maripa Canrola, Zenyin Moguti, Zenyin Kumare, Tucha in that Zenyin Kumare, Maripa in that Zenyin Kumares, and then Carrelana, Jampagi, Deda, Zenyin Mayin Bishes, Chanchusemba Papa Yorwa, Conjugula, Tucha Yungure, in a Zenyin Mares, Chanchusem Papicula, Maripa Yor, the Savin Mares, or that, Chesa Tucha, Maripa, the Savin Yomares.
I hope then the sequence is clear, that starting with the ignorance of self-grasping, the other afflictions follow, the other root afflictions follow, such as attachment, anger, and pride, and from these, further afflictions may well arise. Their mere arisal accumulates karma, and certainly when one acts under their influence, then physical and verbal karma is accumulated. Now the text continues. Whatever is either attachment or ignorance is not necessarily a root affliction. Every instance then of attachment and ignorance is not necessarily a root affliction, and the reason then is given, for these occurring in the continuum of an Arya Bodhisattva are not root afflictions. In the continuum of an Arya Bodhisattva, there is attachment and there is ignorance, but it is not a root affliction. Okay.
다 정신심바 파비규기 되차 되어를 때 디수자윤 좀 말레스 정신심 파비규기 말이 봐요를 디수자윤 좀 말레스 들라로와 다들려도 안에 정신심바 파비규기 안에 저게 나야다 태좀다 안에 따와 녀모전디게 다자윤 좀 말레베 선배게 다 컨트롤다 디수자윤 좀 말레베 선배게 야지 samlo ligiwa kasen decha zeyin mo mare mari ba zeyin mo mare la yedu shanda dige mare sunyo mare ma je shanda dige da zeyin mo rebe sa chagirwa samlo ligiwa jiwaro.
What has just been read, we can understand that ignorance and attachment, an Arya Bodhisattva has ignorance and attachment, but what about the other afflictions? Do they have those, the other root afflictions? And do they have those? And if they do they constitute root afflictions or not?
that is 정신심의 법의 컨트롤이 전혀 이나만 기시해요 말. 그래서 정신심 법의 컨트롤 말에 컨트롤이 매발에 아니 나게 연구 말에 아니 태좀디에 요 말에 아니 따와 녀모체세대에 매발에 그래서 매발자 디나에 가르는 것은 되셔 요래 말이 보여래 현다디게 매발로 제 매발자 고 자유님 뭐기 시화요 말로 지나다 되셔당 컨트롤 요래 건지 디기데 요발에서 그래.
An Arya Bodhisattva, whilst having attachment and ignorance, do not have anger at all, or pride at all, nor afflicted doubt, nor afflicted views. These remaining four root afflictions are not at all present for an Arya Bodhisattva. They only have attachment and ignorance, but as we have seen, that these are not considered root afflictions.
전주심바 파파 많이 맞아야는 저기 3대기 의신 염주 의 변화가 저게 람 냠는 주제 람 귤에 몇개 봐 있나야 먼저 신의 줍내 3대기 의신 염주 세대 기야 연구래 3대 의신 염주 세대 하나 줄에 개봐 있나 콘트로디기 연구 말 콘트로요 말에 세상 콘트로디 안에 전주심바 맞아 하나 저기 지딘 배에 당아 저 3대 당보다 니바 숨바 제가 안에 숨매별 하 대솔이야 콘트로요 말에서 그래.
Those, for ordinary beings who have not accumulated a mental path, but have achieved single-pointed concentration, so they have a consciousness of a being in the form or formless realm, they have no anger. They have no anger. They haven't accumulated a path, they have accumulated single-pointed concentration, and have no anger.
나 전주심바 법의규를 되셔 요래 마릭바 요래 이내에 자유님 뭐 말해라도 전주심 법의규 되셔 많이 비김제 그래서는 대단히 맨당아기 준비기 누신도 누버 춤이 치르스 세상에는 누치 여반은 누들이 야면현다 잡제고 누버 충분히 맞매워 세자반은 그 누트 세자반은 아주 시야다 대 강아지기 되게 말아 안에 가브리엘이야 나시 장제 나 누버 이겐디게 두들이 나시 잡아이나 나이 누베 더블에 아니 맹기 가서 두티 누버 봐 좀전 된 수볼 많이만 책이래서 제가 디 나시에 전주심비길로 되셔 요르데 가서네 전주심바디게 동이 검제 전주심 파바디 동이 원순 또 동이 검비기 누버를 때네 누비 아니 되셔 요르 되셔도 누버 충충 샷해 버렸어. 마릭바 요르데 마릭바데 누가 충충마도요 말았어. 제가 내수기 때문에 마릭바디 결할 때는 되셔도 되 컨트롤다 되니까서 녀모바 현대기 얘기 긴지고 맞지 두고 말했어. 제가 그 누버스 말도 데스마도요 말했지. 현대는 컨트롤 현대라면 이게 말말 din lame 이내 코로 빵바래 콘주길 지딘베 삼대 무신 검제 코로 원유와 좀 바래 좀 차와래 코로 예염 다 사분 하려래.
So those ordinary beings who haven't attained a mental path but have single pointed concentration, they still have the seeds of anger. Those haven't been destroyed. But anger itself, that affliction, that has been destroyed. Then continuing here with the text, whatever is either attachment or ignorance is not necessarily a root affliction, for these occurring in the continuum of an Arya Bodhisattva are not root afflictions because they are diminished in capacity, like poison overcome by medicine or mantra. What this makes clear is that an Arya Bodhisattva, whilst they still have the afflictions of attachment and ignorance, because of the power of the wisdom realizing emptiness, the strength or the capacity of these afflictions has been greatly reduced. Just like if one were to take poison, but then to take an antidote to the poison, that poison would not harm one to the same degree, although poison would still be present in one's body. So similarly, whilst the Arya Bodhisattva will have attachment and ignorance on their continuum, they are not called root afflictions because the wisdom realizing emptiness has eliminated the capacity of attachment and ignorance to lead to the arisal of the secondary afflictions. So therefore they are not called root afflictions because they no longer have the capacity to be the root for other afflictions to result from them.
그래서 원주와 좀 사본나 제가 봐요 말에 이내 원주와 방도고 람냠리 맞아봐 있는 람냠는 진의 곰네 원가 저기 초람 졸람도 곰 통람 졸람지 곰된 통람 톱 되네 방도가블 사본나 제가 방도고 사본나 제가 방거래.
Just go back then to ordinary beings who have not achieved a mental path but have achieved calm abiding, or through their single-pointed concentration, then they have eliminated their anger, but not the seeds of anger. They remain on their continuum. And it's not only anger, it's all the desire realm afflictions have been suppressed. So they have a mind of the form or formless realm because of their single-pointed concentration. And therefore, all the afflictions of the desire realm are suppressed. Suppressed meaning that the seeds still remain on their continuum, but because of the power of the single-pointed concentration, they are not ripening. Those who have achieved single-pointed concentration and thereby have used that to cultivate a mental path will start first with the path of accumulation and thereafter the path of preparation. But it's only when they come to achieve the third path, the path of seeing, that the afflictions together with their seeds start to be eradicated completely.
빠야래 녀보 삼다 빠야들 배둠데 레라 차고 레라오 지네 레라 지케 레라오 차 시네마토 바인다다 먼저 데비 녀모 빠토야기네 먼주와데 빠토야 매바래 제가 시네 톱네 시네 곰제 곰바인다다 내가 저기 람냠레 마제바제 내가 저 람문이데 냠레 마제바제 다가 람 제레 시라나바징이 람세 곰야죠 시라나바징이 람세 곰야죠래 나뭐 시당 락바 시와다 락바신 시와다 락베 남바쟁이세 람 곰나 지거때 람 냠린 제타 지거때네 디 람문에데 말에 당아서 람문에도 초람 졸람 통람 스님린 제타 찍제 람문에 냠린 제타 찍제 시다 시와다 라벤 남바징에 람 냠len 치다 세치 기지요 제가 신이 톱찬에 시와다 라벤 냠len 치여도 녀모 원조와 좀 이야기 원조와 사본나 저 번거마도 원조와 좀 이야기 냠len 치고 좀 제가 되네게 시다 라벤 냠len 치제 something 오신님 저 시라 남바징에 냠len 치여도 아니 아주 대비 녀모 세 원조와 봐 좀여도 안다 아주게 마음반응 하지다 세대네 마 시로가 있나 녀 개와치마가 와지어서 야 할래야 기르고 할래 기고래 제수 근데 소르기 소다 소매다 되네기 다 소리야 개와시 용거래 녀모바 대비 녀모와 짱원이와 짬빵바이나 안 개와치마들라 가와지어서 삼단 당보세다 기고래 람마레 람고네 냠네 지고 말지 시라나 바지 람세디 냠네 지겐데 기래서 다디 나초에 열에디 힌두에 열에디 망고열 시전 남바지람 신의 두편데라 나바인 거야 말 나저 힌두 열에
Those who've achieved calm abiding but haven't achieved a path, they've achieved something like a calm, a path that is peaceful but coarse. So this is not a path that what we would call a path, which would be starting with the path of accumulation, later the path of preparation, and so forth. So this is not a real path, but it's a path that is peaceful, but it is coarse. So the mind is peaceful, but is coarse. So for someone who has achieved that, their desire realm afflictions are suppressed, meaning the afflictions are not ripening for them, but the seeds are still there. And when they die, they will be reborn as a god in either the form or formless realm. But in this life, but they will not have achieved an actual path, such as the path of accumulation. And then practitioners of this type are Buddhists, included both Buddhist and non-Buddhist. The requirement is the achievement of calm abiding, and that has the power to suppress the afflictions associated with our realm, the desire realm.
그래서 되네기 시라 남바징에 람 공면 될라 저게 낭바 용거래 낭바 멤바 용거래 될라 람 냠는 지게 용거래 소람바다 졸람바 냠는 지게 제 용거래 그래서는 가시기 되베뉴모 작바된 당봉 원주와데 니를 빵 파마 좀제 되네고 냠는 제라 야가 용서를 삼바이나 아니 그 person 뇽 되베뉴모 원주마다네 남도다 다마라 찐디 람 냠는 제를 누기도 삼제 될이야 당봉 원주와데 파좀 바가서 메디 메버서제 되는 람 냠는 제라 레라 용서를 삼바 용로 안 되네자 고 시라 남바제 람 공관데라 람 냠는 제겐 돈에 요래 아니 람 냠는 마제겐 요래 낭바 요 낭바 멤바 용거리다 디순이가
This group of people who have achieved calm abiding and suppressed the afflictions but have not attained a path, where the first path is that of accumulation. This will include those who are Buddhists and non-Buddhists. Those who are Buddhists, they may well strive to first achieve calm abiding and achieve this peaceful but coarse path, because it suppresses their afflictions and is a basis upon which they will then strive to achieve an actual path. They've achieved calm abiding now, and now they're striving to develop or to attain an actual path, the path of accumulation. And the reason they would have such a motivation is because once one has achieved calm abiding, the desire realm afflictions are suppressed. One's mind is no longer distracted, one's mind's no longer becoming angry or desirous and so forth. One's mind, therefore, is so much more amenable to spiritual development. It becomes an incredibly powerful tool. So for them then, it becomes so much easier to actually start to eradicate the afflictions, through attaining a real path. For ourselves, who don't have calm abiding, we know how very difficult it is to even weaken our afflictions, let alone abandon them or suppress them entirely. And this is because we lack the strength of mind that those who've achieved calm abiding have achieved.
당보 신이 줍제 신의 톱차유 제라 다 시라나마진 람나네 가르라고 그러스네 되바디게베 라발섬당고 되바디게 라바시오레샤스 다 되바딜란 뛰네 섬던 당보도 빼면서 시오레샤스 권이다 쳐바치고 디섬당고 디공고레 제산 되니기 라바 되바라 라바 가르섬당고서 되바라 빼지 체통통 묘다 저거 망부 아니 지게 칼라사야 동야다 되니게 강아 예다 되니게 내 나서 내야 망보여다 되니게 빼지 되바디게 빼 강아 슈도서 라바스나 강아 슈 섬다했던 거 진짜 내라 되는데 되바딜라 되는데 섬던 당보 차디게 빼 체링부 내 나서다 되니게 매 되간 빼 야고 슈레샤 섬 디니디 파 누시네 되발 파 라바다 섬던 당보들 빼 야고레샤 시워다지 시라나바지 되니지 공고르다 가지 공나로 되니지 요사래 되니게 공전에 되도시도 아니 되비 녀모디마 원주와디마 좀 그러지 원주와 마지막 차고 벤디로 왔다가 저기 칼라치리나 디 수폴린디게 디 야고요 말은 꽤시오다네 칼라들이야 차고 견리마 칼라즈 돈 되버 견리기 말와 제가 칼라들 미 차고게 차고디 기고 말와 되네삼 제가 되네지네 두시네 검제 신의 줍선에 되네 검나 차고래 검나로 시라남바체 람세 되네 되발라 라바타 데라되려 섬당 볼에 시왔다 두시네 검나직 차고래 내내 검여도 니 가슴 질려 아주 되비 녀모 되연라 착백이 녀모 되게 아니 원주와도 막 점도 그래 근데 맞게 차고 사번나 저 방요 말이나 원주와도 막 점. 아 낭바다 낭보면 수인나디 검초 그러지 검나디 시라나마 람 검상 간데 되네 검나래지 디가도 낭베 검초 그래 이 되비 녀모 원주와 막 점고 섬거나 낭바이나 검초 치료배나 수인나디 검나 직 되네 검초 그래.
Those who've achieved this peaceful but coarse path, amongst, including whether those are Buddhist or not, they may well strive to deepen their calm abiding and progress to subtler levels of calm abiding and attain subtler levels of concentration or more powerful levels of concentration. And they will do this seeing that just how coarse, by looking at the faults of the desire realm, seeing all that's wrong in the desire realm, and wanting rather to develop the causes and develop a mind of the form or perhaps even the formless realm. So they'll be looking to increase the strength of their calm abiding or the subtlety of their calm abiding. And they do this through seeing the faults of the desire realm and longing for a more peaceful experience or more peaceful existence. And this will be their motivation to develop ever stronger calm abiding. So, for example, if a particular food type one knows is very unhealthy, perhaps one has a reaction to it, one will have no attachment for it. One will see it as faulty and will push it away. So similarly, these practitioners observe the entire desire realm like this. They see that it's just pervaded by faults, but they now have experienced the peace of calm abiding, and they're wanting to develop that ever further. And this becomes their object of focus.
Sometimes Dambolo Tunita, something Nibadisha, Yaga, something Nibada, Yaga, sometimes Nibad, sometimes Dawad Bear, Rabashin, Duchin, sometime, and do Ya Comchin, Tangazu, Dubawachin, the Nigi, Mazushine top, in Shira number change, Lamushing to top sun, the Shira number change, Lamso Combaina, Comiodu, and Debi many Sudan, Sume Nane. CC said Mado, Diogo, Yomo Manche, Chasang, Debi Gasaine, 냠렌지네 시라나 바치 람정 원주와 마빵 투고래 데네 원주와 빵네 안에고 ngazuke nyom manyam bache ngazu shisobana kawaki ure sisi sari kigre mato dyobala kigoma samdan dambo iba sumba shibala kigoma sisi sari kigre chile jisan 다 데뷔 뉴모 잠 원주와 좀제 삼단 당비의 뉴모들이 원주와 맞좀 봐이나 당한테 데뷔 뉴모 원주와 차산 좀 차와 인자 내 시로도야 가와시 깨기래서 삼단 당보를 끼고 그래 삼단 당비의 뉴모 만치를 원주 좀 차와나 아니 가와지는 삼단 이벌을 끼고 차산 삼단 당보 이벌 끼네 이게한테 두스기로 그래 저래 다 시지 뉴모세데 람냠네 전에 곰노마도 디파 잔다 라바시 강만의 시와다요 말가서 시지 뉴모디 맞아 뉴모는 토셔로 디강라 지요마르와 시제 강로 요마르와 시제데 토셔로와 세상 디 뉴모들라 다 시라나 바진 일미 원주와 고미 빵투야 요마다 람문에 냠는지 빵마도 요마래
CCTV 아스크메이커
세상 수미에 감나네 시제세로와 토셔들어와다 디데 아우르와디 원시네 원시 아 원시세나다 원시 견지나 하고르 원시 메나 리바 삼단 하고르와디
This process actually may well continue on, because as the practitioner develops their calm abiding, they experience many benefits of this calm abiding, but they also know that a more powerful calm abiding can be achieved, which brings further benefits, in particular, greater peace. So even once they've suppressed all the afflictions of the desire realm, they then will look at the first concentration and see that as a more peaceful state and strive to develop their concentration to achieve it. And when they achieve the first concentration, they'll look at the second concentration and see that as more desirable, because the mental state is even more peaceful, and they'll see what they have achieved. Now, what they have achieved was their former goal. Having achieved it, though, seeing that there's something so much better, they will strive for that. And this process will continue through the four concentrations, and then even up to the formless realm, until they get to the very peak of cyclic existence, which is the highest level of the formless realm. And there is nothing further to be suppressed. So there are those practitioners who strive to develop in this way, desiring ever greater levels of peace.
다 데네게 시라 남바치 람나 테네 마주 되베 녀몽 오주와 방야 삼단 당보다 니바 숨발에 가제 깨와 있네 사본나 제와 방메 완자 아 마오바나 양야 마주기 되발에 깨와래 아 되베 녀몽 온도 주와 용고를 강디 용고를 제가서 사본나 제바 마방으로와 지산 양야 되발 마 깨와래 제가 당아서 람 냠는 저 곰네 방도 사본나 제바 방도 양야 깨와기니 레야기니 메래
As the meditator progresses through these concentrations, developing their concentration through these varying levels, the first, second, third, fourth, and beyond levels of concentration, they are suppressing ever further the varying levels of afflictions and mental disturbance. But they're not having an impact on the seeds of the afflictions. These remain undisturbed on their continuum. They are not ripening, but they remain. And when this practitioner dies, there is always the possibility of one of those ripening and propelling a rebirth back into the desire realm, where their afflictions will once again dominate. And that's because the seeds have not been eliminated. Freedom from cyclic existence, from samsara, hasn't been achieved. So they could have a lifetime or lifetimes of tremendous peace, but that will end because the seeds for cyclic existence remain on their continuum. And at one point, one of those who ripen at the time of death and propel rebirth into samsara. But for those who strive to develop the actual paths, accumulation and so forth, they will eventually reach the point where they eliminate, not just suppress, but eliminate the afflictions together with their seeds. And that is the achievement of freedom. That's the achievement of liberation, where one is liberated from the possibility of uncontrolled rebirth in cyclic existence. And that is never achieved by those who are just cultivating ever more powerful levels of calm abiding.
다 람냠레 제가 가시기 당보 신의 줍 전에 되네 아직다데 시라나 바지 람곰제 야 something 무신이 something 당보에 니버 숨발라 소비 무신 염주 토바제 되네 야 람귤레게 야게 베스시야 디 지한시 용거래 아 리치게 가용 것은 다 소소랑 가사 소소랑 매버와 칸나 매버 인자 신의 줍 되네 신의 줍 전에 되네 something 데비 녀몽 원주와 좀 되네 something 당보다 니버 숨바 만지 먼저 좀제 something 시비 무슨 음식 톱제 근데네 람귤레게가 탑시야 지금 거래 제자다 디나네 약쇼디 찬용보디 람귤레게기 레라와디 가령 것은 something 시비 무슨 음식이 디 톱안에 람귤레게알 베 레라 용거래 해제고 가슨디 시내다 하고 찬용보로 차려요 그래서 수크로와 수나 삼대시바자 삼대시비 무슨 주지로한디 남용오 교야라다 레 약쇼데 지고래.
For Buddhist practitioner then, to achieve a path, so the first path, the path of accumulation, to achieve this, one has to have already achieved calm abiding. Without calm abiding, the path of accumulation cannot be achieved. So that we could say is a rule, that is set. Thereafter though, in dependence on differing dispositions, inclinations, practitioners will go about achieving a path in differing ways. Where all practitioners are the same, they have to first achieve calm abiding. Some, in dependence on their own particular personality, will strive for and achieve calm abiding, and then immediately strive to achieve the path of accumulation. Others will first achieve calm abiding, and then start to cultivate this peaceful but coarse path, moving through the various concentrations of the form realm. So achieving perhaps the first concentration of the form realm, suppressing the desire realm afflictions, and then striving to achieve the path of accumulation. Others will rather achieve calm abiding, then the first concentration, then the second concentration, and then strive to achieve the path of accumulation. Others will go a little further, get the third concentration, and others still will go through the same sequence, but as far as the fourth concentration of the form realm. Of these varying techniques, it's what maybe you could say dictates which way one goes is one's personality. But it is said that amongst them the best technique is to go as far as achieving the fourth concentration of the form realm, because from that point, because one has there the union of calm abiding and meditative insights, one is in the best place to achieve a path and progress on the path. So therefore, that is the best way, it is said, to achieve a path, because of the quality of mind already achieved. But in dependence on people's individual personalities, they may choose earlier to strive to achieve the path of accumulation.
나데네 니윤 이슈세데 니윤 녀모바 이슈세데 아 니윤 녀모바 이슈세데 가르라나 디도하다 나바 니윤라 이슈데 초와 권진 차바 지바 차도 세나 요 야바 남체 당어참에 첼메 무바 외바 마데바 레로 바메 쟁이 시진 민바 남양 어디 데솔라 아니 니슈데레 니윤이모 이슈세어 다 데소 가시 콘트로기 레데네리 차도 가시 되샤 차도 온도스네 고 딜리용을 되네제디 니슈다마데 니윤이모 바 니슈시거라.
Those were the root afflictions. From the root afflictions come secondary afflictions. So here we have the 20: belligerence, resentment, concealment, spite, jealousy, miserliness, deceit, dissimulation, haughtiness, harmfulness, non-shame, non-embarrassment, lethargy, excitement, non-faith, laziness, non-conscientiousness, forgetfulness, non-introspection, and distraction. So these secondary afflictions, some will be preceded by the root affliction of attachment, some will be preceded by the root affliction of anger.
Rangyu Zanyu Le Junshin, Deda, Niena, Niumo, Newa, said the Korong Yudi Zayu Batisishi, Trukpo Garo Dine Jungor Gigore, Chesan Deda Tani Uri, New Chad, there's a new Mobas.
As our text then says, they arise from and are close to their causes, the root afflictions. Close to as in closely associated with, coming from the root affliction, and thus are called secondary afflictions.
Na control because chowa dang kunjin diso dilitine control le ligore chowa se dang kunjin se dang chowa lamna da jidan diji nga control se de chenbu la sha deni ma je control de ji ma de jambe na de ji ma di shi shi jo ro de chowa de ne shi sa le de sa control se de control table le ji midube na ba shu chenbu ge de ji yan do control la ro 니마 시서 코르마 시사회네 되는 셈리아 되어서 마디 시시 줘로와 아데서 되네 조지를 초와셔야 돼 인세래 초와셔야 돼 되네 콘진세디 지 나봉아주 콘로시 산디 미추부겨서는 제려야 안디기 니 고갑라는 콜리아 려버 기인 셈베 삼다되어 줘로와 삼로 줘로와 어디 콘진세오라 그래서 콘로게 지서 내한섭 최고래.
The first two, belligerence and resentment, they arise from anger. Belligerence we could understand as being a softer or weaker version of anger. Resentment is, as we have in English, the meaning is that one holds resentment against someone or something and wants to cause it harm.
다 차바세디 배바로 시작으로 와. 다 차바세디 배바로 시작으로 와. 차바세디 소수기 교회나 교회에 샤라 마셔바체 배배 삼로디 차바세고 디소 되셔야 되는 리고로. 그래서네 소소래야 차와네 아니 지 교회도 하고 미하고네 아니 지 교제 몸불리게 소소 마 총처에 그 차배 차바세다. 식바세디에 Deso ne control de bura chagor chigba se chig lamsa control ma shi sana chig madi shi ji yue de kabla ya ja chig to ne ya ja kon la ya ge nyanga chim bo ro chig di ro ji de ne ji sare.
Concealment, this comes from attachment, and it is where one conceals or hides one's faults. And spite, this will arise from anger, and spite is likely to from spite it is likely that once again anger will arise.
Ne chado sedi jigi diso pashi chapala tene ligore dweshala tene ligore chado sedi so sugi ne mi shanda jigi jig benjura inada jig yagi dugina oda ko yagi dugu samsim maki wache kol jig jia jiorwa diso chado sedi ruwan Penny, that how the Bendigo get me, Gajila Pacho delia, Yahuchi that the hero, Jungu, Delia, same Makiva Ched, or that concert the Jungs and Nalia Koyasa, some sort of Denega, some of the Chado Sachi.
Jealousy probably comes from attachment or sometimes even pride. And here, one can be jealous towards others for many things, jealous of their qualities in terms of their personality, they're jealous of their material resources, their reputation, or even jealous of the happiness that others have.
Sena said, "Dear Dushaki, Dushala in the legal and Sena said, so Chapa was and Shalla don't make Sena said, you are taking me some big that. Mi kanga yuva da dene chipe kanga yuna delia chungon robache sosugi nubara chevena dene chigime kasan chevena sosugi sosol mewa charo nyung chagura sembesen sena sia jorwa de shala dongma faba de sena che rangan jugi dongwe semba jimba de di docho de dongmi faba samlo dirwa de sena di zo de shagi den ligore.
Miserliness, this comes from attachment. This is the wish of not wanting to help those others whom one has the capacity to help. So it's the opposite of giving or generosity, which is where one does have the wish to help those that one has the capacity to. So miserliness, this comes from attachment.
Yo said, Kohotaya Chagro, Juda, you said Kohotaya Chireta, and Java said the young Chawara Chire, Sosugi, Sosola Michi, Nagada, Rodo, some Kevin, number General Chagore. Your course and the Kohotaya, Miller, Zumashero, you said, Juna, but some knowledge in Shorva, Ben Lerachile, Michi Lerle, Social Lerle, Corbiana, Adanga, Nagin, Dora, Chichia, and Yoro, Yugur, what? I said, Yugur. Java said again, Sosolia, and Jige, Kashel, Araya, Oshujan, Sosuga, Araya, Oshus, Delit in a Sosuyanji, test, Yasem, Tovian, or Nali, yes, and be consoling, Naya, yes, and be some of that Yoro. This was Java, or this, the area.
Then we have deceit, dissimulation, and haughtiness. Dissimulation, then, is perhaps when you take advantage of others and will be dishonest towards others. So an illustration would be, for example, lying about why one's not going to help, saying, oh no, I'm too ill today to help, whereas this is not at all true. Then haughtiness will be related to pride, and it can be for example, if one has a particularly impressive moustache, and therefore feels very proud of oneself about one's moustache, then this would be an illustration of haughtiness. Harmfulness, this will rise from anger, whereas non-shame, non-embarrassment, they probably both arise from attachment. That's what, and non-shame, non-embarrassment may also come from pride. And due to pride, one doesn't have any shame or sense of shame or embarrassment. Then lethargy, this will arise from the root affliction of ignorance.
jenge se bame jenge se ada temba ramsa je chochoro se je desoya mukpati le sosoro marikpati le soro ne shishi minba se ada namya se ada gajil dis chasa da yonsa de gawa inda zanyin tubo kano de marikpaje marikbo wange zanyin tubo kano ge cheso le ngor da daya kare nyomba ba kare cheso le do ta she de dang zo des cheso wor re do dem.
Likewise, one can read through the rest of these, and from understanding in general how they're used, the terms are used, one can understand that they will be most likely to arise from perhaps attachment or from anger or from ignorance, and so that will apply to all of them. So there isn't really the time to go through them in any detail, but from the little that has been said thus far, one can see the relationship between the secondary afflictions and the root afflictions, and the root afflictions have at their root the ignorance of self-grasping.
Zawi nyomo bochuk dinade kya zo danga zo nyembo tensa zo di sulesena marikpa sedire dinade marikpa zanyu tu na marikpa sed nyembo de marikpa koron la nyembo temba ina ni shandachi chasan ane ko rashin ko meba me ru korwa chasa marikpa nyembo te ki marikpa de nyembo te de gar zo khare nyembo de khare lan tongyu tu be shera tere chasa tongyu tu marikpa sed yu yin yesu jidawa shin yu yin yesu di ngoni de rangshi demba matubare de di ha mo wa che dile dosho demba juba jindio ba za marik bare chesan dela cheba che yu yungo demba matuba de tongba yin toba ina dine marik ba de le nyongure chesan zawi nyumo marik ba de le nyoba ina desha konto nyomo ka se janda dige ko yaya ge chung du go ba de ne nyba chung du go ba de de jinza dang zo nyembo che de zo de da marikpade pangmato pa na nganzo nyomo pa shanda di yung nyaga ponjuwa meba sueba ina yangja chema da kukhapsi de yang jiyong ruwa chisa da marikpa la nyembo tenpa tenche ko pudu pangyo pa ina dini ko marikpade la nyupa cheshung mangwa ra dini du sin rinpe pangyo de nyupa rakpa de nye la pa pang da rakpa si do kunta digi chagirwa kunta ki saban digi ya pang dini ko rakpa dini ki rakpa digi saban cheba pangyo de dini ko rangshin ji ko de shanda zanyon chuktige rangshin ko gaadu kora da gaadu de ani nyi nishu de rangshin ma kyan chaadu korwa da marik badela kunta sayada lange yorwa chisa ra kunta de rakwa rwa lange de ani ka so de chamorwa chisa nga jo pande marik badela lamsa depchil pa thuyo ma ko rakpan ma pangi je ya chamod pa pang do korwa.
For ourselves, I would encourage that one focuses rather on the root afflictions, because to the extent that through one's study and meditation, one can weaken the root afflictions, the secondary afflictions will thereby be weakened. The less prevalent the root afflictions are for us, the less easily they arise, the less frequently they arise, and the less strength that they have. This will have a corresponding impact on the secondary afflictions. And moreover, in the same way as there is this relationship that as we weaken the root afflictions, so too do we weaken the secondary afflictions. To the extent that we can weaken the very root affliction, the ignorance of self-grasping, we will be able to have an impact on the other root afflictions as well as the secondary afflictions. And this ignorance of self-grasping is an ignorance that doesn't understand how phenomena exist in reality. And in fact, it believes that they exist in a way that they do not, hence it's ignorance, a wrong consciousness. Its antidote is the contrary mind that does understand how phenomena exist in reality. And being a mind in accordance with reality, serving that function, this consciousness is called a wisdom. So the more we can develop this wisdom which understands how phenomena exist in reality, or as wisdom is normally called, the wisdom which realizes emptiness. To the extent that we develop this, to that extent we weaken ignorance and all the other root and then secondary afflictions that result from this. When one comes to realizing emptiness, then one starts the process of actually eliminating ignorance. One doesn't realize emptiness once and it's done, because there's various subtleties here to ignorance. The ignorance of reality can be divided into two: that is acquired and that which is innate. When one realizes emptiness directly, one eliminates the acquired ignorance and then starts with the process of eliminating the innate ignorance. And as one does so, the resulting afflictions continue to weaken ever further.
Alright, that is the negi, the genial shitty, Janju Simbu, you chat and it's Zanyu Mare, says your lima. The genial Janju Simba Papa, you do a chat, the new moment here. Cesada, Janju Simba Papa, the Yigi, new mobile, do a chat, the Shendun Jibe, and Lala Pishu down to waters. Shendun jail, Panto jail, Pishu to waters. Cesar. 강준의 가브리엘이야 뇨모 되샤디 온도 유르주세 강준 온도 유르주 시한에 팬버트위에 베지던 거래 제 베지 땅도 거래스 아 저신 봐봐대.
Just to relate or refer back to something we discussed earlier in this talk. So it says here that in the continuum of Arya Bodhisattvas there still is ignorance and attachment, but it's not a root affliction. So to add one more point here, is that for Arya Bodhisattvas, they are able to use this attachment and ignorance that they still have in a way to be of benefit to others.
뇨모바디게 되샤디게 베쉐타체 셴 안셴리아 디기주야 셴리아 게오주야 안셴 게오주야다 안셴 코알레 타야게 귤리아 베쉐타도 거라 제가 누기네 캐바주에 멤버 캐바주에 두디 베쉐 쇠게 쇠게 다제 메리아 베쉐타도 거레스 제가다 다 캐바 맹게제 사샤바나 히엘리아 수술 뇌기엘 베쉐 차르고 어디나진 자기를 지르.
So it's important to be clear here that this isn't something that we are yet able to do, because for us, when the afflictions arise, from one others follow. So if attachment to ignorance arises, other afflictions follow, and their mere arisal accumulates karma, let alone acting under their influence. But for Arya Bodhisattvas, the situation is very, very different because of the strength of their wisdom and thereby the weakening of these two afflictions. So they are able to utilize the arisal of ignorance or attachment to benefit others or to accumulate virtue for others. And it's likened here to where a medicine is made from a poison. So something that would, without being transformed, would kill, actually here becomes beneficial. A poison transformed into medicine. So this is how Arya Bodhisattvas can relate to their remaining attachment and ignorance.
나 되니기 뉴바 쇠투야데 가르rel라네 제주스 파바디게 돈용어스모 또바다 장슈 셈 공바 장슈 셈 공바다 장슈 셈다 잠닝제 장슈 셈 냠렌다 돈유도베 셰랍 냠렌 니니 냠렌기 뉴바디 델라테네 당아주기디 장슈 셈 파바디게 되샤디 가스찬레 펜비기 규르토 베제타 투야디 단 뉴베 가리 제바레스나 장주셈 공바다 동요도 비샤라 공바 디기 뉴발레 때네지 투가로다 투고레제레.
And the specific characteristics that the Arya Bodhisattva has that enables them to have the strength to relate to the arisal of the afflictions like this is firstly their wisdom directly realizing emptiness, as well as the great power of their bodhicitta. Because of these two qualities of incredibly powerful wisdom and incredibly powerful bodhicitta, they are able to transform and relate to attachment and ignorance in this way. It is those two virtuous qualities that give them the mental strength to do so. And then we can stop here for this week. If you still have further questions, then do feel free to ask. George?
The question is, are we, with calm abiding and special insight, are we talking about bodhisattvas who are on that path? That's the first question. And in which realm does the practitioner achieve the path of accumulation?
Earlier it was referred to calm abiding and... we referred to the union of calm abiding and special insight. The rest of the question, sorry, related...
about a bodhisattva on the path, or just an ordinary being in Buddhism?
Okay, so does that refer to any Buddhist or a bodhisattva already on the path? The union of calm abiding and special insight. It's the first question. And the second question is...
where does he achieve the path of accumulation? I assume that's seeing emptiness directly, isn't it?
Okay, so where is the path of accumulation achieved? Is that in the form realm or formless realm?
Yes. And what part of the form realm, or what part of the form?
Okay, which like subdivision then?
The number will be enough.
Okay.
The Dangbo de la de Shila Chanyambare se Gongande, Namba Yore, Namba Mimba Yore, Nika Yungur, Garsa, someday she be me a younger, Hayungur, me younger, Hayungur, Nika Kansi Yore, de la Namba, Namba Mimba, Nika Yungur, Dangbo de Shirwa. The Niba de Manzuki Cholam said, and then Cholam Jegi, Lam Gule Jegi, Deva Mang, Deva Yore, and then Sula Yore, Suliungre. Suliungre, Cesar Hale, the Pishi Sudan, to come Gomatan, Deva Niga, you are Chagore. Solam to Wendel. Solam to Wendel Yore. The men big Dundro Hashile, yours, Ida, the Sule, and Jansim Jawata, the Solam Jai, Ungore. Casaning Yaman Comshi, Yamne Jetigan, the Negi Yajic, Legi Wangi Yajic, Ida Kiwaina, the Ida Tikena, Jansim Javat in Ungudua, yours. Oh, Ida said it's Dundorwa. Ida le, Jansim Java Yungures. Semjendwa, Dundorwa, Dundoina, Jansim Java, your age. Dundo Chas Jidan Dundo in that Jansim Kiva, maybe my capital, as Kiva Yores, or just that solemn Kiva Yungore. Nyawa Ida Dundo Seorwa, Nyawa Ida Dundo Misa Jora, Ida lay solemn Kiva Yungore, Dundo lay solemn Kiva Yungore, was the Jansim Dundo de Re. That could Dundu Lutin, Ludi, in that Dundula, Tien de la Jansim Java Yungore. Kashe Yungure said it, Donald.
So, firstly, the attainment of the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. This is can be achieved by Buddhists as well as non-Buddhists, as well as by humans and by gods. So it's very broad, whom can achieve it. Then in terms of achieving the first path, the path of accumulation, this is mostly achieved by beings in either the desire realm or the formless realm, so anywhere in the formless realm. And in the desire realm, mostly, as in almost exclusively, humans and some gods, but the sutras also mention that due to the power of imprints, certain types of animal or spirit can also achieve a path. But that is not common, but the sutras refer to this in many places. But the vast majority of desire realm beings who achieve the path of accumulation will be humans or gods.
Sounds dundro da ida res no ko dundro res tongjo da me res gabriela dundro le lam gyule cholam ba jashu sem gyule ke de yong go ro.
And therefore, in the same sutras, it's advised that be aware of how one relates to animals, don't look down on them. One doesn't know what their continuum, the state of their continuum. They may well have achieved a path.
And then that Jema de Lang Shengur Shi said, "You were my share." That in the mass.
The next week we'll finish there then for tonight, and then next week we'll start with the 4 changeable mental factors. So thank you very much.